Hi guys, welcome to Winsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. In our last video, we kind of talked about some of the new seed varieties I was going to be growing for 2023, as well as how I plan out my vegetable garden space here in the city. Today, I am so excited because we're finally going to start the first seeds of 2023. Now, I sat down this morning and started making a list of all the things that I needed to get started, and it was a little longer than I anticipated. I may have said in a previous video that I am typically a person who cannot wait for seed starting. So when I have that 6 to 8 week window, I'm certain I'm at 8 weeks. That's not the case this year. It's been a really busy year and I'm still in my window for all the varieties that I'm planting today, but I'm towards the middle to end of the window. So I really want to get these seeds started so that they have time to grow big and beautiful before we move them outside later this year. Now, if you're new to gardening, specifically seed starting, one of the things that you're going to need to know before you start your seeds is when your average last frost date is. That's something that's really easy to Google. A lot of times there's a Master Gardeners program that you can find in your area, or the Farmer's Almanac usually has pretty big cities that you can find when their average last frost date is and calculate your own. Mine here in the city, if we're looking at the last possible frost date, is May 27th. Now, MSU, Michigan State University, has the Master Gardeners Extension program in my area, and they have this beautiful spreadsheet that will list by date the percentage likelihood of another frost occurring. So that May 27th is last known, though I don't know when it's updated because I feel like we've had some frost past that. But it will also tell you May 15th, you have a 75% chance that your last frost date has passed. May 10th, 60. I don't know if those are actually correct. I'm just kind of throwing numbers off, but that's what it looks like. For me, I like to go with what I know. And then so when I'm planning, I do that last known date and back up the 6 to 8 weeks when I'm trying to figure out what needs to be started when. And as we get closer to the date in question, you can best believe that I'm glued to the weather app looking at the nighttime temperatures to see how cool it's getting at night and if there's likely to be frosts. Now, some plants can survive light frost, which is typically 28 degrees Fahrenheit and above, but usually 28 degrees and below is considered a hard frost, and even some frost hardy plants don't like those. So when you're looking at seed packets and looking at information, those are things to note when you're trying to determine what to start when and when to start moving your plants outside. On this channel, we're going to be following my seeds from the day we plant them to the day we stick them out, the day we harvest, and the day we pull them out in the fall. So you'll be able to see how I do that throughout the whole season. And today I am super excited that we're going to be starting my tomato and pepper plants. Now, I have my handy dandy little list here of everything that needs to get started. And like I said earlier, it's a little bit longer than I had anticipated. So we're actually only going to be starting the vegetables today. And then hopefully either the next video or the one after that, I'm going to be starting my flowers as well. For me, I think the vegetables take priority because you have that day to harvest that for a lot of my varieties are in the 70 and 80, sometimes 90 range. So I got to get the clock started. Now, that clock, I never really understood if that clock starts when you transplant outside or the day you put the seed in the soil. I think it's the day the seed hits the soil, and that's just average. Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's later. It depends on your light, it depends on your heat, lots of different factors. But the thing that you need to know is it's going to be a long time before you get to eat that first piece of vegetable or fruit or whatever you are harvesting. So for me, I'd like to get those started sooner and the flowers later. And I'm also being honest, because I am a little bit behind, my typical seed starting setup is not quite ready yet this year. I had some delays and I need to finish setting up the whole thing before I start my flowers because I don't really have enough room for them. So that's something that I'm going to do at a later date, and we're just going to split this video into two. So today vegetables, and in a future video you'll get to see the flower varieties I'm starting. As I look towards the vegetables that we're starting today, tomatoes and peppers, those are two of my favorite things to grow. One, they're hugely satisfying. There's such a variety, and I really like to start peppers and seeds that you might not be able to buy varieties in the store. And while I'm doing those more eclectic varieties, I'll throw in some staples as well, just because you got to get your grounds covered. So today we're going to be starting 11 different varieties of tomatoes and 7 different types of peppers, both to be used here in the city and up at the cottage for my mom and dad's vegetable garden. You can see we're inside. It is getting later in the day and it's kind of cold and rainy outside. This is actually in my kitchen where I start almost all my seeds. I don't have a lot of space and I don't have a lot of counter space, so I make do where I have. So I thought I'd show you in this kind of tight quarters how I adapt to start seeds inside and try to keep my mess minimal. It's not ideal, but it's what I have. Okay, so right here on my handy dandy stove is actually where I do almost all of my seed starting. Now, I have a tray that I'll show you in just a second, but before I do that, I need to unbox some new supplies I got that I'm super excited about. This box is from the Bootstrap Farmer. I buy a lot of my seeding trays from Gardener Supply or the Bootstrap Farmer. I have a number that I purchased at Lowe's or just on Amazon, but they just don't hold up to the year after year use. I've actually I think I have a couple left, but most of them have been thrown out. I also keep a lot of pots that I get from plants I purchased, so you'll see those more when we up pot things because they're a little larger size. Those I just kind of keep and I have a pile outside my thing. But this is something that I haven't used from the Bootstrap Farmer before. This might not seem super exciting to you, but it really is for me. These are 6-packs, as you can see. Just 6 cells that you can do seed starting. They're not super big. They're probably an inch and a half square. But what I'm most excited to try out is the easy holes to pop things out. They also have like airspace and airflow around the sides because this is supposed to help root development. I'm interested to see if it holds up year after year. One of the things that I love about Bootstrap Farmer is that they use really high quality, thick plastic. I don't know if you can like really see. It's really thick. It's really rigid. It's got some flex here because of this, but I'm not going to break it and it won't give out in a couple of years. I have some flats and larger pots that I have from them that they've overwintered outside. I treat them a little better now, but in the past, they've overwintered outside. They've gone through a lot of sun and I've had them for 4 or 5 seasons. Haven't broken any of them. So I got enough to do 5 flats of these guys. I think primarily it's going to be used for seeds before they need to be potted, and then some flower varieties that you buy in 6-packs anyway. The other thing that I purchased is some lower trays. Again, they're nice, thick trays, like very durable, way to go. I didn't buy any humidity domes. I already have some that I'll use, but these are just 10-20 trays, a very typical size. Really excited to be using these again this year with my new product. The other tool that is key in this seed starting is this tray. This is the reason why I'm able to do it on top of my stove and keep all my mess contained. I actually have 2 inserts. I originally bought this. There's not anything wrong with it. It's just smaller than I anticipated, so I don't use it a ton. And if I do, it's usually because I have 2 different things going, so I'm protecting 2 different areas. So for today, it's not going to be used. This I just bought on Amazon. I'll see if I can find it again. It's a garland seed starting tray. Nice and thick, quite large. It makes everything contained. I also use a mixing bowl, which honestly I should probably clean and put back in my set because it usually stays with this until like June. And then I'm like, where's that bowl? But anyway, I use this to moisten my seed starting mix. I'm just using a run-of-the-mill Miracle Grow, to be honest. This is just something I purchased at Lowe's because it's what my local one had. It's not an organic formula. I usually try to get some, but they only had 1 bag that I could locate. And I'd rather just use the same stuff all the way throughout. I've used some fancier seed starting soils, and to be honest, it didn't go as well as I anticipated, and the only thing that I changed that year was the soil. So usually I buy the organic Miracle Grow. This year I'm just doing the run-of-the-mill, and it's worked well for me. So I don't really mess with things that work well in the process. Now that you've seen all the bits and bops, the other thing that I'm not going to show you, mostly because it's really dirty, is I actually do put down a drop cloth so that as things kind of fall, I go and shake it outside and then I vacuum up afterwards. Anyway, that's how I kind of adapt my kitchen temporarily to very easily be able to pot up a couple seeds and then put things back on the shelf so I can still use the kitchen as a normal kitchen. So for today, let's get started. I'm just gonna pop everything together and then I'll go through the different varieties when I show you at the end. thing when seed starting that you might want to know is how wet your thing needs to be. It is best to pre-moisten your soil, especially if it's in bags like this. It's pretty dang dry when it comes out, and that seed really needs some moisture to get things started. So I like to moisten it to where it's clumpable, but not like when you squeeze it, water's not dripping out. So this, pretty good consistency. Okay, so I got everything started and it really doesn't look like all that much right now, but it's amazing for me to think about the fact that this flat, because I got everything into one flat, will be all my tomatoes, all my peppers here and at the cottage, as well as I had some space to start some leafy greens, which typically wouldn't be started in this manner, but you know what? I had the space, so I figured I would do it because I got all the flat cabbage, that Dutch flat cabbage my mom is going to be planting, all the Primo cabbage that we just bought, as well as 2 6-packs of Salanova in this itty bitty flat. I'll say it again, it really doesn't look like much, and it looks really sad when you think about the fact that it's the only thing on this little seed starting thing right now, but it will quickly be joined by others. You will note that I did put it on a heat mat. Both the tomatoes and peppers will benefit from germination. To be honest, the greens probably would prefer cooler, but beggars, choosers. Worst case scenario, I could, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull it. Now, the heat is basically under what needs it, and that's not, there's one little 6-pack of Salanova, but I don't know how well that's going to do because that was pelleted, and it was from a couple years ago, so if it doesn't germinate, that's okay. But you'll see all the little hopefuls that'll be joining us. I ended up planting 5 Paul Robesons, which I talked about in the last video is our favorite tomato, 1 Dr. Wishies. I did plant 2 Napa Chardonnays because I want one plant to live, and it's so finicky. I also put it with some other cherry tomatoes that like to be a little on the drier side, so hopefully that'll work. It's with a blueberries cream and a blueberries cherry tomato, 2 Chadwick cherry, 2 shishitos, 2 cornitos, 4 Dudespania, 2 for me, 2 for mom, 4 corbaci, 2 for me, 2 for mom, 5 mini bells, 2 jalapenos. Then I ended up planting 5 green peppers. I actually intended to do the intruder variety, and I don't know what happened. If I lost my seeds or imagined I had seeds, either way, I had another green pepper that I just substituted it for. So these are actually Ace F1 hybrids from Johnny's that I bought a number of years ago that were good. 50 days to green, so that's pretty fast. 4 San Marzanos, 2 for me, 2 for mom, 2 Cipolla Pride, those are both going to mom, 1 Juliet for mom, one jasper that was kind of an extra space that I'm thinking will probably go to mom's, 2 sun golds, one for me, one for mom, 1 Brandywine for mom, 1 Abe Lincoln for me. I also put this humidity dome on to help keep the humidity nice and tight. It's got these little holes. This is also from Bootstrap Farmer. I have had this and I have some more somewhere else I need to find. But I really love them. They're super tall, which I really appreciate because some of these will pop up and be really tall. I don't have to worry about it brushing the top. I don't have to worry about the little tags not fitting. It's just really good in general. So you'll note I haven't put the light on yet, mostly because it really doesn't need it until they've started sprouting. Some plants need light to germinate, but all of these seeds are planted about a 1/4 inch deep, so light's not a problem for them. Oh, the other thing that I did that you might have noticed is I sprinkled vermiculite over the top of it. I find that that helps keep down any like mold and sometimes helps regulate the watering a little bit more. So after I sprinkled the vermiculite, I used a spray bottle and just kind of dampened everything so that the vermiculate's nice and moist, the soil's nice and moist. I'm probably not going to need to water it, except maybe a misting here and there for at least a week, maybe even 2. The other thing that I'll note about this is these cells are quite small for these plants. I fully intend to up pot them. I like to start them here, nice condensed at a time where I've got lots of things going, so I can concentrate my lights on like 1 or 2 shelves versus having to have all my light units up and running. They'll get up potted, at which point I'll use, instead of a seed starting mix, which doesn't have a ton of nutritional value, an actual potting mix that's got the nutrients the plants will need. In the past, I've started them with other pots, usually about this side, also from Bootstrap Farmer. I find that it uses a ton of seed starting mix, a lot more soil than's needed. And you'd think, oh, well, you can just keep them in the pot. Well, by the time they're beginning to outgrow this pot, they are so starved for nutrients. I, of course, will supplement them with like a water-soluble fertilizer, but I find it's better if you have decent soil as well as this. I will plan to up pot those small things to a larger pot, and the salad greens I probably won't, because by the time they are needing to get out of that, they'll be ready to go outside. And I'll have to harden them off first, but that's why I like to use that. And then these new little cells will be prepared for the next generation of plants. So that's really gonna do it for this video. I almost stopped my recording when I first got started to be like, oh, you guys, if you know the smell, there is nothing better than the smell of nice, damp potting mix. Like when you're ready to get started, it just like, oh, smells like spring. So I'm really excited to watch these closely. They're probably not going to germinate for 6 days or so, maybe as much as a week. Some of the varieties germinate faster than others, but that won't stop me from checking in on them daily and just waiting to see that little hint of green popping through. That's always one of my favorite days. So I'll be sure to share that moment with you, and I will see you guys in the next video, either to get outside here doing some spring cleanup or starting those flower seeds, because there's a lot of them that still need to get started, but I'm up for this challenge. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me today in this video. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe so you can follow along, see these seeds spring into life, and everything else that goes on here at the city and the garden. I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.